So One Punch Man Season 2 is finally back after its brief 1-week hiatus. And I'm not gonna lie, I missed this. I miss talking about this series because it is, even though it has its own flaws and there's some problems with it and all that, and it's not a perfect series, and I don't think it's probably one of the best series of this anime season, I do enjoy it. I really do. And so, I'm glad to have it back, and I'm glad to be able to watch it. Now, to be also blunt, though, I just got around to watching it today. Today I finally watched the previous episode and then watched today's newest episode back to back, and I gotta say, whoa. So, I'm just gonna be honest, the previous episode, in my personal opinion, was way better than today's episode for a lot of reasons. And the major reason is the emotion that the previous episode had was just on an all-time high that I was just blown away. Because it was everything that I was complaining about, and it was finally fixed within last week's episode, or 2 weeks ago, it was fixed within that episode 8. What I'm talking about is that the episode actually felt like it had life. It felt like it had consequence. It felt like there was danger. It felt like it had everything that I think many fans were complaining about. And I was just truly blown away by how amazing the last episode was when I got to watch it today. And the emotion of seeing a character that's constantly said that heroes are useless, there's no point, making fun of them, they serve no purpose or whatever, and martial artists are stronger, and you just seeing how he starts to beg for a hero to save him, and you see all these heroes pop up in his mind, and he's just sitting there crawling on the ground, all that, bleeding out, about to be killed, and he just starts begging. It's a really emotional moment. There was just so much emotion put into last week's episode, or the last episode, that I gotta say that they did a hell of a good job, and I wish I could say the same about the episode that came out today. It's not necessarily a bad episode. It does have some great moments, better than, the previous episodes before these last two, but I mean, even then, it still has its own problems. But regardless, though, last week's episode, I think, out of everything that I've seen so far from this anime season of One Punch Man, it was easily the best episode. Hands down, easily the best episode. Honestly, no competition. But okay, with that out of the way, though, this episode. Now, like I said, this episode isn't perfect, and it is kind of a step back compared to the previous episode. It isn't outright bad. Like, the whole beginning segment of this episode is great. It carries on the emotion of the previous episode, getting to see a character, once again, that did not care about heroes, thought they were useless, begging and eventually seeing Saitama land in, protect him, take care of this monster, reassure this dude, and then as he's about to go deal with more problems, you have it to where he's like, no, I will not allow the very man, the hero, that allow me to actually, be happy that I'm saved or whatever, he just was inspired, I will not allow this person to be killed. And he tried to stop Saitama, and Saitama just moves on past him and goes to defeat monsters. It's a really emotional moment, and I think many can agree with me in terms of the themes of this episode, or the different segments. That was probably one of the best segments of the episode, just seeing that moment of Saitama really demonstrating what separates him from someone that is really not a hero. And it's just kind of funny that Saitama isn't really even aware of what he does as a hero, and how he really just nails the part perfectly. It's inspiring, honestly. It is, because it kind of plays in with the theme of what this episode is about, or what the entirety of One Punch Man is actually about, and that is Saitama being the strongest. And so, let's just directly dive right into that. And I think this is where the episode actually shines at, besides the emotions that carried on from the last episode. It shines when we get to see a discussion between King and Saitama about Saitama being bored. Now, this is something I think that's very common in today's real life. Like, everybody probably at one point in their life, they've experienced something to where they're bored. They feel like they lack motivation. They just don't want to do something. And I think it's something that everybody has encountered at least once in their life. It's also depression as well. And you can kind of look at what Saitama is going through as a state of depression. He is someone that has reached the top. He's on the top of the summit, and there is no one to challenge him. Nobody that can give him a challenge. No one that can make him feel like he can grow. And there's just so much more going on there than just him being the strongest, which he kind of starts to talk about to King. He's like, King, look, I'm the strongest. I've reached the top. And because I'm, the strongest, I don't have any way to grow. I can't grow, so to say, because, that the joy in being able to be the strongest or moving on up is to be able to see yourself grow as a person. And that's basically what he's saying. Because of where I'm at right now, because of where I'm positioned in society, just how strong I am, I feel like I just can't grow. And King does give him a very motivational speech, and he does admit he takes it from a manga, but it does not change the fact that what he said does hold very true. And basically he's like, at the end of the day, Saitama, there's more to just being the strongest. You have ideals, wanting to constantly be able to understand and answer these very important questions, what it means to be a hero, and Saitama obviously can't properly give that answer at all. And he's like, until the day you can truly give that answer, then most likely you have not achieved the top of the summit yet. And even though King was giving very helpful advice, and I think it was very important, and Saitama was listening in, it wasn't something that Saitama really wanted in that moment, or at least not something he needs right now. Because like I said, it's clear as day that Saitama in his own way is going through a state of depression. He's someone that just doesn't get that fire lit up inside of him anymore, and you can see a major contrast with that scene when Garo pops up. He's someone that was defeated, he's bleeding, he's broken, but he's like, I can get stronger. And it, like I said, it's a contrast to what Saitama was talking to King about, of how he feels like he can't get stronger and move on. And so you could see that Garo was truly having fun. He was getting to move up and get stronger, and Saitama's just reached a pinnacle to where he can't move up. And so even if Garo at this time isn't in the position to really make Saitama sweat or give him a challenge, it's a possibility if time continues onward, maybe Garo might be able to do what Saitama did and reach the plateau that Saitama is currently on. Because Saitama even stated within this episode, he has his hopes set up very high. He hopes that this hero hunter will give him a challenge. But getting back into the main message of that segment of the episode, Saitama, it's something that he needs to work himself out. It's not something that someone could tell him to make him get over his problem. He needs to work it out himself. It's basically how depression really is. To get yourself out of a state of depression, sometimes other people really can't pull you out of it. Sometimes you have to do it yourself. And that's kind of the case here, is that Saitama has to pull himself out of his endless line of boredom, being bored with things, and then just taking an interest in being quickly bored and moving on to something else. He needs to be able to figure out his own way of moving on past this problem he currently faces. But getting into the scene of the bad of it, though, the reason why I said this episode is not good as compared to the previous episode is because of that scene, and let me explain. The scene lacked a lot of life. It did. It was very emotional by the voice actors. I think the voice actors did the best they possibly could with that scene. It was an amazing scene, just voice acting alone. But in terms of sound design, to art and animation, and just the camera panning and all that, or the close-up personal shots they did, it wasn't good. It was not good at all. There's just so much more they could have done with that moment to really build up the atmosphere. Even if Saitama would have completely negated it and it's like, I'm still bored, or this is not what I really need, or whatever, there still could have been more emotion put into King's speech. Like, imagine if King's sitting there talking to Saitama, instead of having them walking down a street, and and he's having his bike beside him, you see to where the camera just zooms out, and you just see how this light shines around King as he's giving this monumental speech to Saitama, and Saitama, like, puts his hand up to kind of, like, my eyes and all that, because of just how much King is glowing. There's just so many little animation effects that could be added to that scene to give it more life, and obviously it was not done. And, I mean, it's not really hard to really add in a light effect just to kind of add more emotion, to build up the atmosphere of what King was trying to say. I feel like there could have been a lot more emotion in that, but honestly, they fell flat on that regard. Like I said, the only reason that scene held up as well as it did was because of the voice acting. Now, another part, too, of the episode is getting to see some of the comedy segments. The comedy segments are still really good, and I think this is one of the big things that many fans of One Punch Man are going to at least be happy with, is that the comedy of One Punch Man is not entirely lost. It's still enjoyable. Like, Puri Puri Prisoner in this episode was pretty enjoyable. Just seeing how the phone was ringing where it was stationed at on his body was hilarious, and just seeing how the man gave this big bear hug to, like, this hedgehog and destroyed him was great. I had a good laugh. But overall, it's an okay episode. It's a decent episode of One Punch Man. It has its problems. I think it could be better, But, you know, it's probably not, because, you know, there's a limited amount of time for JC staff to finish this series, and it's been clear as day since it began that it's not going to be anything, not even 1% close to what the original was like. So with that out of the way, I love you guys. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below, and with that, Chibi out.